made a video that men need to be the adored. And I thought that was a fantastic video. Women need to be the adorer and men need to be the adored. But we live in a society where we adore the women and not the other way around. And I've talked about this ad nauseum on my pod as well, that women need to chase a man's validation and never the other way around. Can you talk about it from a psychological perspective? Because we kind of just touched on it now. Why men need to focus on being the adored and the women need to be the adorer?
Sure. So it's cool that you watched my episodes, Myra.
Of course, man.
That's awesome.
I got more questions on your stuff too. I did my research.
Cool. Well, you can learn more about this. I did an episode called The Balance of Attraction. Let me start there.
Yeah.
Which is basically like the axiom is no two people can like each other exactly the same amount. Like that is impossible, which means that in any relationship, one person likes the other person more and the other person likes the other person less.
Damn.
It's inevitable. Like sometimes that can change, that can go up and down. There are different gaps and things like that, but you can't ever be permanently equal. This person is the adorer. This person is the adored. There's actually pros and cons to both positions. One position isn't necessarily better than the other. And most people, not just women, most men and women want to be the adorer. People don't think that they do, but they want to be the adorer because the adorer gets to be with the one they love. And what better experience is that? They're the one who get to have the emotional experience in the relationship. They get to wonder about what that person is doing when they're not around. They need to get excited when their phone rings and that person is on the phone. Or what's going on? I'm nervous that he hasn't called or she hasn't texted. People often want that kind of, we call it romance, but that emotional experience when it comes to their relationships. On the other hand, the adored doesn't really have that. This person gets to be with the one they love. This person gets to be loved by the one they're with.
Gotcha.
It's a different experience.
Yeah.
And this is why often, and this happens to both men and women, but let's put it from the woman's perspective. A woman might chase after a guy who kind of doesn't really care about her, kind of treats her like an option, not really a priority.
Yeah.
And then she's eventually like, oh, I am tired of this. I'm just going to go find some other guy.
Yep.
And so she finds some other guy who dotes on her completely.
Yeah.
Now the roles have switched.
Yeah.
She's the adored and he's the adorer. And that might be a welcome change from what she was used to experiencing with the first guy. But ultimately, she's going to get bored in that situation because most people want that emotional experience, but women generally seek it more than men with respect to their relationships. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's been said that you can make a woman feel anything except bored. Right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the value that they derive from relationships is the emotional experience. I think that high value guys, to the extent that they're successful with men, they can do two things. It's what they can do for women with respect to resources and lifestyle, and what they can do to women with respect to like the tingles and emotional experience.
Yeah.
And so best if you can do both at the same time.
Yeah. Then you're unstoppable.
Right. But it's hard for women to be the adored because it's kind of just, you have to sit there and you don't really feel anything.
Yeah.
A lot of people say when they get that, yeah, he's a nice guy, but I just felt something was missing.
Yeah. The chemistry.
The chemistry wasn't there.
There's no connection here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when the women say that, 9 out of 10 times, that means the guy probably pedestalized her to some degree. She feels as though she's better than him. And it's her nonchalant way of saying, hey, you're nice and everything else like that, but I just wasn't feeling it. And people get mad at me for saying this, but I've said that women typically tend to be terrible people when they have the leverage. And what I mean by terrible people is like, they're not going to respect you to the same extent. You're not going to get the best out of her because you're not getting an emotional investment. To get the best out of a woman, unfortunately, you need to get an emotional investment. And I don't think a lot of guys understand that anything just by me giving her all this attention. And that's a great point that you made. The adored, a lot of the times, doesn't feel that, right? And
they don't feel much of anything. It's like somebody doesn't call. It's like, I wasn't thinking about that person anyway, so it's no skin off my back.
And
so they have more power. They have more control.
Yeah.
So that's the pros of being the adored, but they don't have the emotional experience.
Right.